Well, what a year. It's a strange year 2020, not just for us, for the whole world. And as it is Christmas Day, it's a time to give thanks. First of all, thank you to everyone who supported the railway in the past. Thank you to everyone who supported the railway while we were closed. And if you did support the railway because you watched these videos, then thank you so much. That's why these were set up. Of course, it went on for a lot longer than we all thought, and don't worry, there's plenty more to come. Before we crack on, I'd like to say a huge thank you to everyone who supported this, whether you've provided pictures, videos, information, behind the scenes. There are people who were checking the scripts to make sure I wasn't talking complete rubbish only some of the time. And also, there's someone I'd like you to meet. This is Ben, one of our drone pilots alongside myself, who joined halfway through the year and has been behind the scenes on quite a few episodes, including when we went down to Midsummer Norton in Somerset. But what is a Christmas finale without a few cameos?
While there's still a lot of work to do, rest assured it'll be worth it.
Thanks from all the members of Friends of 80150 for all your help and support this year. Wish you a Merry Christmas.
And see you next year.
Even when the trains aren't running, we'll still be here getting ready for the next season. Happy Christmas from us all here at the Motive Power Department.
And as we saw, what's a locomotive without its boiler? Merry Christmas from the boiler shop. Well, we all know the locos are nice and everything, but the carriages are the star of the show. Happy Christmas from the carriage workshop. But let's not forget who keeps them rolling. Merry Christmas from the carriage department.
And then there are all the people who staff the trains and keep everything rolling. A very happy Christmas from the operations department.
And don't forget the team who make your journey as smooth as possible. Happy Christmas from the Permanent Way Gang.
And when you return, we'll be here to welcome you back. Happy Christmas from all of the station staff.
And we'll still be here making sure the station's up to scratch.
Happy Christmas from the gardeners.
Well, it's been quite a year, hasn't it?
Oh, what a way to start a conversation. Yes, it's been quite a year. I think if you'd said to me at the start of the year that this was what was going to happen, I'm not sure I would quite have believed it.
Yes, it's a bit of a baptism of fire for a new GM job, isn't it?
Yeah, I think this year's biggest surprise was taking on the role on the 3rd of March and about 11 days later closing the railway. You know, shades of Mr. Beeching or something, I suppose, and not really what I'd expected.
Decisive actions, definitely.
Yeah, I think nobody could have predicted what this year was going to bring, and I think it's been a real eye opener, probably for everybody in so many ways. It's highlighted both strengths and weaknesses about the railway. You know, it's been very, very challenging. We've had to innovate a lot. We've had to change a lot of things as we go. And I have to say, you know, a lot of those changes are probably pretty invisible to people. So there are some that are very visible. You know, we've been able to do, remarkably, we've been able to move the physical state of the railway forwards quite a bit with things like the pit and the massive clear up around Ropley and the improvement around the works. But a lot of the changes are actually pretty invisible. So just, you know, one of the challenges, just to throw one out there, is normally, in a normal year, most of the money coming from our customers flows into the business, which is nice because it comes in through buying tickets and the like, and gets ticked off by the accounts department, the head of which we affectionately know as the head of sums. And Adrian counts the money in, and he goes into our bank account and pays for the things that we want to do. This year, quite a lot of the money to start with was going the other way, because it was about refunding advance bookings for things like dining trains that we were holding, and of course progressively we're unable to deliver for the most part.
Yeah, it must have been a horrible experience having to know that you can't open and then trying to save all the money at the same time give everything back which everyone's owed as such.
Yeah, I think that's a fair way of putting it. It was very challenging. It was very scary at times, with money seemingly just going out the door and nothing coming in. And for a long while, of course, there was no prospect of the grants and the loans that we were eventually able to secure. And so that meant that it was a very worrying time. You know, we had the benefit of having had a good event at the start of the year, and thank goodness we did, which had got some cash in the bank, which meant we didn't immediately run out like some places did, at heritage venues of all kinds, not just railways. But it was a very worrying thing, and very difficult for people, very difficult for the staff really, because the whole system is set up to bring money in. If you start having to turn the system round and make it go the other way at the kind of rates we were having to deal with, it's very challenging for everybody actually. So hats off to Karen and Adrian for largely carrying that through, and also to Rosemary and Sue and the other volunteers who pitched in and helped with that. But yeah, very, very, very.
That being said, when we did reopen, there were some bonuses or some benefits to being shut down. We could kind of regroup, and then the COVID services where you had a train ride, a break at Rockley, and then another one was brilliant, both kind of staff, volunteers and passengers, because you had a bit of everything, nice and social. You didn't feel stranded at a station just waiting for the next train.
Yeah, I think, probably Heritage Railways in general have learnt quite a bit this year, those that have opened, and we've certainly learnt a lot this year, I think. One of the things that we learnt was that people really like that kind of itinerary, if you like, of being guided through their visit to the railway. And I suppose we'd always had a few thoughts around that might be the case, but never had the opportunity to try it. And I suppose if there's a silver lining, it's that COVID forced us to try a lot of new and different approaches to things. Seeing our number one,
Dave
pulling passenger trains as a regular occurrence was quite a surprise, but was brought about by the desire to save as much money as possible from the coal bill, and therefore we were using the 2 tank engines for several weeks.
I have to admit, that was, from a footplate point of view, that was absolutely epic.
Yeah, I'm sorry I never got a chance to have a go on Dave on its full line trip, but everybody I saw seemed to be having a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, but it was strange. Normally you just kind of shunt up and down Rockley, never actually getting to go out for a full trip was an experience, and there was a lot of happy people.
And I think the other great highlights of this year, apart from seeing the railway sort of grow in imagination and come alive in terms of thinking about new ways of doing things and trying lots of different things, which I think can only help us for the future. The really lovely things that stick in my mind were seeing the positive impact on volunteers, staff and the general public of being able to come again. And the lovely letters and emails that we received all the way through the summer from people who had, members of the public who had come and enjoyed a ride on the railway and were just delighted that they could do something, and do something that was being delivered in a manner that made them feel completely safe and comfortable the whole time.
Yes, it was. I thought I was initially sceptical about how social distancing could work with something like this, but it did actually turn out quite easily, because you could just say, you sit there, one-way systems, and it seemed to sort of be perfectly designed for it.
I think we've made it look easy. A lot of planning went into that, of course, and a lot of hard effort by a lot of staff and volunteers to actually execute it. But you're right, it's of the places that I haven't been to that many places this year, probably like most people, but of the places that I have been to this year, this railway has been amongst the most comfortable in terms of an environment and in terms of how it made you feel to be here, with very little opportunity to brush against people at any stage, at any place around the railway. And bringing people to Ropley was always part of that, in the sense that it's our biggest space. Once you release a trainload of people into Ropley, they pretty much disappear. We're used to seeing it at Thomas with perhaps between 2,000 and 3,000 people on site. And even then it's not particularly crowded, you just got a bit of a nice buzz about it. And we were dropping 150 or 200 people a time off, a maximum, off the trains that we were running. They kind of just disappear into the environment that's here, which is exactly how people wanted it to be.
Yes, I think the best example probably would be the gala, because a lot of people, they were really sceptical, because obviously galas have been busy, but the fact that, granted, we really limited the capacity, but it's strange having a sold out event but spacious at the same time.
Yeah, I think we need to pat ourselves on the back this year. Hats off to everybody, because we did a Flying Scotsman event at the start of the year, and that drew a lot of comment from people who'd seen other events about how good ours was and how enjoyable it was. We then ran the first, I think probably the first passenger train of any heritage railway, because we actually ran at the cusp of lockdown ending. So we had our training weekend, and then the following weekend we ran a train with some photographers on it. We ran the first dining train, and we ran the first, and pretty much, as far as I can see, the only gala this year. And the key to that was, at each stage as we've gone, we've learnt a little bit more, and we've applied that learning to the next thing, and that allowed us to figure out a way to run a gala. It was a bit different because people had to stay in the same seats, and we brought the different locomotives to them. Bit of a difficult concept, I think, for some enthusiasts, but actually the feedback was they loved it. They absolutely loved it. The other really interesting thing actually was, if you compared the number of seats on the trains that were taken with the number of seats we knew we'd actually sold, we disproved the theory that photographers don't buy a ticket. Because pretty much you could count the number of people that were out photographing, and I would say 80 or 90% of them must have bought a ticket, because that was the only way you could account for the difference in between the two numbers, because they weren't travelling on the train, we were always empty seats. We'd never have known that before, of course, because we were never allocating seats.
No, the allocating seats was a brilliant idea, actually. I would have loved to spend a day on the Bell set. Would have fallen asleep pretty quickly.
Yeah, some sets are more comfortable than others, perhaps.
Oh, definitely. So we have a train of lights outside, just doing final testing, ready for the services to start, and we'll be midway through by the time this goes out. We always say that we like to be the first at doing stuff. And I know we've got some stick for saying this is the world first because other people have done something like that, but it's not like this, though, is it?
I don't think so. I mean, if anybody hasn't seen any of the videos around, do a Google search and have a look on YouTube, because there's quite a lot of people, or on Facebook, there's a lot of people posting stuff. I think if you compare that to photographs of other events around the country, let's not name any names, they don't bear much resemblance to what's happening here. And all that anybody's seen so far is what's going on the outside of the train, which is only about 50% of what's actually going on. Last night we ran a trial trip for the purposes of calibrating the GPS, amongst other things. So there's another thing, these trains are GPS located, so the music and the lights are connected to where you are on the railway, which is, I think, pretty innovative. And And as I say, there's music on the train, there are lights on the train, there are wristbands on the wrists of the people travelling on the train, and the whole thing is coordinated into a show. So you don't just get what's on the outside of the train, you get what's on the inside of the train as well, and that's quite impressive. And yesterday evening, when we were running with some of the staff on board as a test, those who hadn't seen it before spent most of the round trip from Ulster to Bolton and back going, wow. So fingers crossed, the general public are going to go away with a bit of a wow as well. There are, I think it is a first in this. There's several firsts about it. I mean, it is the first time I think that anybody's designed a lighting rig for a train. It's the first time that lighting rig has been a digital LED solution, because if you look at other railways, it tends to be a sort of
a string, isn't it?
Yes, I think they call it rope, and those ropes are laid across the train, and yes, they change colour a bit, but not really quite like. Not quite like
this.
No, I mean,
you're doing well when you got the X Factor man and doing voiceovers.
Yes, well, yeah, that's very true, and you also know you're doing well when you can write "Merry Christmas" down the side of the train.
Sure.
So, with approaching 14,000 LEDs per train, and each individual LED being individually controllable by the software system in the control desk, you can do an awful lot with these lights that is quite impressive, actually, very impressive. So, yeah, I think it's a first on a number of levels. I believe it's the first time anybody's run 2 trains of lights together as well, because we have 2 sets out. And that's quite impressive as well. We had the 2 sets with the lights on for the first time in the station here at Ropley last night, and it was quite eye-opening. It was an amazing visual spectacle with 2 trains side by side in the platforms, probably visible from space.
Well, I'm fortunate to have any mates who can testify to that one, but I say it's when we did the first filming round that went up on Facebook. That was just a surreal experience, standing pitch black at the line side, and then suddenly that comes towards you.
Yes, the visual impact of looking down the length of the train inside and seeing the effect of the lights, because a lot of the lights on the outside project inside, and then you've got there are lights on the inside as well, and the combination of that lot is quite stunning.
And that's just considering what's happened this year. Lots of railways have had to close, some unfortunately permanently. And the fact we can still run, we still have some first trains, first galas, first dining trains, and then this. What do we do next year?
Yeah, how do we top that? Well, it would be nice to think that we weren't having to reinvent the wheel monthly. So it would be nice to have a period where there's more stability around the COVID precautions that are required. And clearly we're still going to be, for as long as it takes to get the whole population, or near as damn it the whole population, vaccinated, we're clearly going to be having to keep in place COVID precautions. So I think the first thing to say is that next year our standard travel is going to look, our non-event day travel is going to look very similar to what we were doing this year. A few tweaks here and there, a little bit more time at Ropley we hope, but broadly the same kind of pattern. We're an events-focused railway at the moment. It's something we need to work on over the longer term, is reducing the reliance on events somewhat. Not necessarily by making the events smaller, preferably by building up the numbers of people that come on the non-event days. And clearly keeping the pattern that we stumbled across this year is, I think, probably key to that. But it's important next year that we run a full programme of events, so we are actively trying to get steam illuminations up and running, but also planning for next year's Thomas events, War on the Line, a couple of new events with the Vintage Vehicle Weekend and the 1950s Weekend, And then all the other events that we would typically run, like the galas, there will be a spring gala which will be in May because I'd like to be warm.
Jeez, but mere technicality.
And a diesel gala in June.
Oh, fantastic!
And then an autumn steam gala as well in October, alongside other events. And a little team of people are also working on ideas for sort of mini events to go alongside our trains on the weekends when we don't have a main event running. So things that we can add to the experience without adding to the burden in terms of needing to staff it. I don't know, things like visits by the Bentley Owners Club or something. You know, that kind of thing. So quite a few things happening. We're looking at an expansion in our dining train provision, with the possibility of introducing a third branded dining train to go alongside the Bell and the Countryman, which will continue as they are. And of course, we've also recently announced that the Somerset and Dorset Railway Trust and the company and society are working on bringing exhibits from Washford to the railway, and I think that will be very exciting because quite a lot of that will probably end up at Ropley, and some of it at Alresford. Those are the two most likely locations at the moment, though there is quite a lot more work to do in detail. And those things are the sorts of artefacts that the S&D Trust have are things which we don't have a lot of on this railway. Most of them are also London South Western related in some form or other, so there's a really nice fit to telling the story of this railway and also being able to tell the story of the Somerset and Dorset. But that integration of the two will also give our visitors something else to look at. So there'll be more things to do when you come to Ropley because there'll be more things to look at, and that's really very deliberate pathway of trying to increase the amount of time people want to spend on the railway. Very excitingly, I think, is the new playground. So for a long time we wanted a new children's playground at Ropley. We have ordered it. One of the nice things about this year has been that we have been able to continue to invest money for the future, despite all the problems that have come our way. So hopefully by the time, certainly by the time Thomas in April comes around, we should have a new children's playground on the picnic area at Ropley, which is an amazing design that is effectively a half-scale model of Cheltenham, created to be a children's playground. And I'll leave people's imaginations to ponder on that, but it's going to look absolutely fabulous. I think the other thing that's really brought this year out, though, I have to say, Will, are the excellent films that you've produced during the year. And it was started as a bit of a
fundraising effort, yes,
to help the fundraising effort and to have something to talk about the railway in a otherwise very quiet time. And I think, if memory serves me correctly, we originally thought 5 or 6 films would be produced.
Yeah, it was just supposed to be, I reckon, a couple of months. It's Christmas. I genuinely did not think it was going on this long. When the idea was initially floated to me, I contacted a mate of mine who works in media, and he says, if you're going to do YouTubing, it's a lot of effort. Don't do it. And I said, it's only for a few weeks, it will be fine, and it's December.
Yes. And how many have you produced?
I think it's in the region of about at least 40. We started at the end of April, and it was at least every week, and then at one point I thought it'd be a brilliant idea to do twice weekly as well. When I got back to work, I was a bit more challenging to undertake.
Yeah.
But I was surprised how well it took off. I thought it would die out pretty quickly, and then week on week, people were saying, yes, this is brilliant, we want more, we want more. And I was sitting at my computer thinking, they want more, they want more. And trying to think of topics to do. And it was actually quite nice once we covered all the history of the line. It timed in quite nicely when we reopened, because then we can get down here and then go into my second aim was to show how things work and to give people knowledge about stuff they hadn't noticed before, but would notice when we tell them and would come down to come and see it. Hydrostatic lubricators, what a meaty subject that was.
Yeah, I have to say I've enjoyed them all. I think, hats off to you for the effort you put in. I really, it's been a big part of what's made this year special for this railway and what's made this year what it turned out to be, which is more than it should have been. And thank you on behalf of everybody on the Watercress line. Thank you, because I think without you, it would have been a much less rich experience through lockdown. Yeah, so thank you, Will, on behalf of everybody at the Watercress line, because I know that it's been very, it's been very warmly welcomed. It's been very important part of people keeping in touch with their railway, but also very important to much greater number of people than you might imagine, because I've had comments from a lot of people who are in other railways, managers and volunteers, about the fact that they're always waiting for your next video.
Oh wow!
So your fame is spreading well beyond Watercress line, and I think that shows in the number of views that the YouTube channel is getting now, which is very substantial, and with a lot of people who subscribe to it. And the only complaint I've really got is you've made it so popular and I have to suffer the bloody adverts.
Yes, I had the adverts one as well. Oh, it's only here so far. But yeah, it's been fun. I mean, I should stress it wasn't just me. I mean, when we started off, it was kind of you, Liam, a couple of stage team who were helping write the scripts, because it may seem like I don't know that much, especially on the history side as well. And then when we got into it, a lot of the scripts were being looked at by our ops manager, Richard, because I say he knows a lot more than I do. And it's been really interesting to kind of get people to talk about a subject they know about, and it's interesting to find lots of little quirks, just random snippets of information that are actually quite entertaining. But aside from all the script writing and general information, we were really fortunate. As you remember, we put out a request to lots of our volunteers to have any photos, send them in, and I was inundated. And essentially, I managed to build, in a few days, an archive. And then we had a couple of our guys who were there towards the start, sending in his slides. And also, we were really fortunate to have the guys at B&R Video Production and Kingfisher Productions as well, who said, you can use our footage. And that was a real help, especially for the Locos of a Line episode. If we didn't have B&R videos, it would be all right. It just would not be at that level. And then Kingfisher stuff, that was pretty much anything. That was to do with the railway being built, relayed, in that initial kind of rebuilding after closing of BR. So yeah, without them, really, the series would, I wouldn't say not have taken off, but it definitely would not be as good as it was.
No, we've been very fortunate that our friends have kind of rallied round, and yeah, huge thanks to Kingfisher Productions and B&R Productions for doing that, because I think it, as you say, made the difference between good and excellent. And I think you make a really good point, which is that everything about this railway is a team effort. So I think as we kind of draw to the close our fireside chat, because we're running out of coal, I think two things I'd like to say. One is thank you to you, and thank you to all the volunteers, all the members, all the people who've donated to the railway this year, all the staff, everybody who's involved in the Watercress line, and everybody who has visited the Watercress line, because they've made it what it is. It's brilliant to be part of that, and I think all of us who are part of it probably feel that. It's a team effort. It's a family. I think it's drawn together more as a family and as more of a team during this year. So for me, I don't think this year has been a wasted year. I think in fact what we've done collectively as a team is make the very most that we could of what we had. And I think we come out of this, strangely, stronger than we went in.
I'd agree with that. It's been wonderful to see how people have pulled together and innovated, try and keep this going. And yeah, it's when we came back, just seeing everyone, just smiley faces, volunteers happy to be back, public happy to be riding.
Absolutely, and the strongest memory of this year is going to be seeing volunteers coming back for the first time to work at Ropley, and the positive impact that that clearly had on a number of people. And it makes you realise why we're really here. Because why we're really here is only in part about preserving history. It's actually about the fact that through preserving that history, we can bring a deep joy to our members, shareholders, and the general public, and do something that's actually really very worthwhile and very important for people's mental well-being. I think, to me, it's a very Merry Christmas, and I think it's. I think we have every opportunity to have a really happy New Year, because the railway's in pretty good shape coming into 2021, the best that we could have hoped for, and probably a lot better than we could have dreamt.
And what a note to end on. Thank you for watching this year, guys. We're going to take a quick break, but we will be back next year, so stay safe, have a Merry Christmas, and we'll see you in the new year.
Merry Christmas.
Just in the nick of time. It's weird to think like 10, 20 years ago you'd need to employ a helicopter pilot and a guy leaning out the side to get those kind of shots. Technology, eh?
Scary.
Yeah. Right, all shut down, ready to go?
All shut down.
You know what that means? That's a wrap.
You didn't just say that, did you?
I did just say that, yeah. Well, you only get so many times kind of to legitimately say that, don't you?
Did you manage to get the special guest?
No, decided it probably wouldn't be practical, but you know, because Christmas, lockdown, coronavirus, she's got a big family, addressing the nation at 3, you know, it's not always practical, but you know what I say, start from the top and work your way down.
Did you just mean the...